Welcome. Good morning. My name is Molly, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's creature feature, Birds of a Feather. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that Harvard University is situated on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Massachusetts people, and we strive to honor this relationship. Creature Feature is an online series from the Harvard Art Museum that offers families a chance to discover fantastic creatures across the collection through close looking with museum staff. In today's talk, we will have a chance to page through an amazing avian album with Erica Lawton, who many of you will recognize from our past creature features and will be our presenter today. Before I turn things over to Erica, I want to explain how you can participate in today's talk. So I invite you to please take a moment to find the chat box at the bottom of your screen. You should be able to find a button there and to open this by clicking on that. So during our time together, Erica will ask you questions about what you see, think, or notice, and we ask you to type your answers here in the chat box. And for our younger participants, you may have to ask an adult for help typing in your answers. Or if you're tuning in with someone else today, you can call out your answers to them and share your responses aloud. I'll be here to read these answers aloud as we go, and also we'll keep track of any questions you might have in case we have time to answer them at the end. And one final note, I'll just ask you to check that you're chatting to all panelists and attendees in the chat box so that everyone joining us this morning will be able to see your answers. And you can adjust this by clicking the drop down arrow in your chat box next to where it says to. So with that, I am delighted to warmly welcome Erica and invite her to start exploring.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erica. I work in the Division of European and American Art at the Harvard Art Museums. And you might recognize me, like Molly said, if you've seen some of our other creature feature webinars this past year. Doing programs like this is one of my favorite parts of my job. Today, we are going to talk about a very special album of watercolors in our collection. Since we can't be in the museum together right now, though I hope we will be soon, let's start by looking at a gallery from a special exhibition we had at the museums a few years ago, with the album we're going to look at the case in the center. Has anyone in the audience this morning visited the Harvard Art Museums before? Let us know in the chat.
We have a whole range of responses, some who have visited, some who've never visited, some who've just been once. So we do hope all of you will be able to join us at the museum someday in person, but so grateful for this chance to get together in virtual space.
That's right. Thanks, Molly. It's so great to hear from all of you. If you have been in the museum, you might recognize this gallery on the third floor. That's where we put on special exhibitions like Drawing the Invention of a Modern Medium, which was on view back in 2017. If you haven't, that's okay too. We're delighted to welcome you to our virtual museum today. So here is our album at the left-hand side of the case. Since works on paper, like drawings and prints, can be damaged if they are exposed to light for too long, we can only display them for short periods of time. This is true for our album of watercolors. So if you've had the chance to see this object before, you might have seen it in a special exhibition like this, or in our art study center, where we look at things in the collection that aren't on view in the galleries. This photo was taken in the study center during a study day for students and scholars a few years ago. And the Avian Album is right here. The Avian Album has a very plain cover, as you see here, but we all know you can't judge a book by its cover. Its title reveals a bit more about what it contains. Avian is another word for bird. And this album contains 96 drawings of birds and a few other small animals drawn in black ink and watercolor on 83 pages. It's about 17 by 13 inches. So it's bigger than a 3-ring binder and similar in size to an old-fashioned photo album, something that someone in your family may still have. These beautiful watercolors have stayed vibrant for hundreds of years, partly because they were kept safely away from light inside the album. Now, you may have wondered why I'm calling this an album rather than a sketchbook. There is a clue here in this detailed image of the bottom of the page. Do you see the torn edge there? Why do you think the paper looks like that? Let us know in the chat.
Perhaps because it is old.
Ooh, that's a really good suggestion. This is an old piece of artwork.
Or perhaps it was removed from another artwork or book, maybe ripped from another sketchbook. Also, maybe because of weather or corrosion, so some sort of change over time.
Those are all great ideas, and they all get at the reason why we can see the edge there, which is, like a couple of you guessed, these watercolors were done on separate pieces of paper. Then these thin pieces of paper were pasted onto the pages of the book. And so that's why you can see the edges fraying a little bit because it's old. A few of the other drawings were drawn directly onto the pages of the album after, but the artist used this album to collect drawings he had done so he could keep them together and refer back to them later. This was like a book of ideas that he could keep coming back to as he worked on different projects throughout his career. There are many different types of birds pictured in the Avian album, and I'll just flip through some of the pages now to show you a few of my favorites. Notice all of the details the artist has included as we browse through. The colors, the different lines and textures of the feathers, the bird's poses, whether they are standing on 2 legs or 1, and their distinct expressions seen in their beaks, which are opened or closed, and their eyes. You might start to notice that some of these birds look a little more imaginary than real, while others might look more familiar. As we look at the next few images, I'd like you to guess what kind of bird is represented. You can type your answer in the chat as we go. Ready? Okay. What kind of bird do you think this drawing is of? Let us know in the chat.
A crane, a flamingo, a stork, a pink flamingo.
Those are all great answers. And I noticed that they're all birds with really long legs. So that was a good clue. This is a flamingo. Notice the way the legs bend, the pink coloring of the feathers, and the distinctive beak in both the drawing and the photograph. What about this little bird perched here on the branch? What kind of bird do you think that is? Let us know in the chat.
Top guesses so far: a parrot, a macaw, or a papagayo? A scarlet macaw, a very specific type.
Oh, a lot of you here know a lot about birds, I can tell. This is a parrot, and as some of you noticed, its specific name is Scarlet Macaw. And we can notice the curved beak, the lighter coloring around the eye, and the bold color pattern on its feathers. Okay, This one might be a little more difficult. What kind of bird do you think this is?
A heron, specifically a great blue heron, or a crane?
Wow, again, you all know a lot about birds. I think we have some ornithologists in the audience this morning. This is a heron, and it is in fact a great blue heron. So I'm sure you've noticed its coloring is a bit more subdued than some of our other examples, but the dark and light patterning on the head and around the eyes is similar, as is its really sharp beak, its long neck and legs. I especially like the way the drawing shows the spiky texture of the feathers on the bird's chest here. Okay, this is our last one. Do you recognize this image from the beginning? What kind of birds do you think these are?
Peacock or peafowl.
Very good. So those are both correct. Peafowl is the name for the males and the females. The males are peacocks and the females are peahens. And they're easily one of the most well-known birds in the world, as their dazzling tail feathers give them away. Thanks for looking closely with me. Now that we've seen some of the fantastic drawings inside the Avian Album, you might be wondering about the person who drew them. Jean-Baptiste Oudry was an artist in France in the 17th and 18th centuries, about 300 years ago. He trained to be an artist as a young man and then had an artistic family himself. His son became an artist too, and this portrait of him is an engraving done by his wife, Marie Marguerite Frosset. A portrait is a picture of a specific person. We can see his name at the bottom here. This print of Oudry includes some objects at the bottom that tell us a little bit about him. Let's zoom in and take a closer look. What objects do you see here at the bottom of the print? Let us know in the chat.
Lots of different things to notice here, but some that jump out are a guitar, some books, an artist palette, and some brushes. Another person noticing the guitar and paint brushes. And Susan sees that drawing of the dog on the left side.
Great work. Those are all wonderful observations. We can see the guitar here, some sheet music, the painter's palette and paint brushes, and what looks like over here, a drawing of a dog. That's especially important because Oudry made lots of pictures of different animals, not just birds. When Oudry was studying to become an artist, he learned to paint portraits of people, but he became famous for his paintings of animals. You might say that he made portraits of animals instead, like this painting of the king's royal hunting dogs. Do you see the letters at the bottom of the painting? Those are the names of the king's dogs, Missy and Lawton. I like that he identified them by name because they are individuals. If you have a pet, what is your pet's name? Let us know in the chat.
Serpentina, Kobe, and Lady B.
Wow, those are great names.
Super fun. Thanks for sharing those. Oh, Schwan and Boots as well, perhaps joining us with you from home this morning.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad we have some animal friends in the audience. So Oudry was an artist who experimented with making lots of different kinds of art, including paintings, drawings, and even designs for tapestries and furniture. like this settee, which is a fancy word for sofa, in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum in New York. Let's zoom in and look closely at the pattern. Do you see the red, blue, and beige birds soaring around this intricately woven fabric? Can you see the owl in the center? Here's another piece of furniture, a chair also with a design by Oudry, also at the Met. If we look closely at the center of the back of the chair, we see two animals. What animals do you see here? Let us know in the chat.
Perhaps a rabbit, a squirrel and maybe a rooster.
Those are all good guesses. And I can tell that we're noticing the bushy tail. I think that's what a lot of those animals have in common. They are squirrels. This is another page from the Avian Album, which actually depicts a dog and a squirrel. And this is one of the few images that is not of birds. Remember when I said that this album was like a book of ideas for Oudry to use for different projects? We can see that the image of the squirrel on the branch here at the bottom of the page is very similar to this one woven into the fabric of the chair. Some of his drawings would have been used this way as patterns for tapestries that the weavers could follow. This image is reversed as part of the tapestry making process. The settee and the chair were both made at the Beauvais Tapestry Manufactory when Oudry was the director. Both of those pieces of furniture were made for a Danish ambassador who may have met Oudry when he came to Versailles, the King of France's palace, pictured here. As we've seen, Oudry was an artist who made many different kinds of art. He also had several different jobs. I like to think that his coolest job was when he was painter at the Royal Menagerie of Versailles. A menagerie is a collection of animals kept together where people can see them, like a zoo. King Louis XIV built a menagerie on the grounds of Versailles and filled it with plants and animals from around the world, including 55 different species of mammals and over 150 different species of birds. The menagerie is one of the places that Oudry saw the birds and animals that inspired the drawings he made. As you can see from this print, the king designed his menagerie with grasses and trees and water fountains, and a pavilion in the center where his guests could stand and see all the animals from one place. When the king wasn't home, other people could come see the menagerie, but they had to pay to enter. If we zoom in and look a little closer, we can see the birds and the fountains here. So that's one way that Oudry saw some of the birds that he drew in the Avian Album, by looking at them in real life. Another way that Oudry got ideas for his drawings and paintings was by looking at other art. This was and is a common way to learn about art making. Look at other artists' work and try copying it to learn how it was made. In this time before photography, scientists, naturalists, and artists all used drawings to document images of plant and animal life and record information about creatures from faraway places that most people would not be able to visit. Oudry learned a lot by looking at pictures of animals by artists like Peter Boll, who also depicted animals from the Versailles Menagerie years earlier. Does this pavilion and fountain look familiar? How about any of the birds? Now, we know that Oudry kept the Avian album with him in his studio, so he could look back at the watercolors for inspiration or ideas for his artwork. Some of the drawings in our album were translated into new mediums, from one type of artwork into another, like we saw with the drawing of the squirrel that was used in the fabric on the richly upholstered chair. Oudry also made many oil paintings of birds and animals, like this one, titled Demoiselle Crane, Toucan, and Tufted Crane, made in 1745 and now in the collection of the Stadtliches Museum in Germany. By comparing some of the watercolors from the Avian album with this painting, we'll see that he based the birds in the painting on his drawings, with a few changes. As we look at the next few images, I'd like you to look closely at the similarities and differences between the watercolor sketch of the bird and the final version in the painting. I'll ask you about what you see. The Demoiselle Crane on the left is based on this watercolor from our album. Let's look closely. What similarities do you see between the crane from the album and the one in the painting? Let us know in the chat.
A similar posture or stance. They both have beaks. The head plumes are distinctive, and the pose looks almost identical. They also both have a long neck and have similar legs and feet and coloring.
They're all great observations. I love the way you noticed this very specific pose, the way the legs are, these plumes coming off of the top of the head, and even the way that that long neck is twisted back. Great work. Next, let's compare the toucan from our album with the toucan in the center of this painting. Let's look closely. What similarities do you see between the toucan sketch and the one in the painting? Let us know in the chat.
The red coloring is very distinctive, and the coloring overall is very similar. Again, the similar posture in the drawing and in the painting. The eyes seem to have more personality, I think perhaps in the drawing. Yeah, and more people noticing that the distinctiveness of that color and where it's placed on the bird.
That's great. Yeah, especially as a lot of you saw this little piece of red feather just by his tail. That's so distinctive. In the way that it's perched on the branch here, we see we've got the dark coloring and then lighter on his chest and eyes. And of course, that really distinctively shaped beak. Great. Lastly, let's compare the tufted crane from our album with the crane at the right of the painting. This time, I want to look at the differences between these two. What differences do you see between the tufted crane from the album and the one in the painting? Let us know in the chat.
The position of the legs look different. The drawing looks like it's in the water. The legs don't overlap in the drawing versus the painting. One has a waddle. The body and the white feathers are different. The legs, the colors, and the beak.
Those are all great details. So we can see that even though this is, the same type of bird, when Oudry made the painting, he changed a lot from this original drawing. A lot of you notice the way the legs are. It's interesting because a lot of the drawings we've seen don't really tell us where the bird is, but here it looks like he might be standing in water as opposed to the land over here. And then of course we've got this feature here, which is completely absent in the painting. Thank you so much for looking closely at this painting with me. You made some really great observations. Now, that's the end of my talk today, but I hope that through all of our close looking together, making connections between the watercolors in the Avian Album and other works of art that Oudry made, you can see why this album was such a special collection for him during his life and still is for us today. I'd like to say thank you to my wonderful co-host, Molly, and to all of you for looking at this fascinating album with me this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. This was so much fun and so great to look at these incredible birds together. I feel like we'll all go off into our Saturday noticing the feathered friends in our world a little more closely. Thank you all for joining us this morning on Zoom. We're so grateful for this chance to gather. And we are grateful to Erica for helping us look closely at these incredible works of art. I just want to mention that this will be our last feature for the summer months. We're going to take a little bit of a pause, but we'll be back with more family-friendly programming like this in the fall. So I invite you to stay tuned on our calendar for updates about this and also lots of other upcoming virtual programs, which will continue into the summer months. We're also going to send you an email just after we log off with a link to the Avian album. The entire album is digitized. We have some amazing photography, so we hope you'll be able to spend some time paging through the album online and zooming into the details of these incredible birds. And then the one thing I wanted to mention is for anyone who's interested in doing another Zoom program this morning, we have a student guide tour coming up at 11 a.m. Also on Zoom, and I'm dropping the link to information about that tour in the chat. Cecilia Zhu will be talking about making faces and her viral makeup tutorials inspired by works of art from the Harvard Art Museum. So if you're interested in that, you can find the link to join on our calendar. So with that, I want to thank Erica again for an incredible presentation, and thank you all for joining, and we'll hope to see you online again soon. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.